This is an SM Media production.
Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of the Celtic Report, SM Media's exclusive Celtic podcast. I'm Scott Pike. It's an absolute pleasure to be your host as always. It was Flag Day. Celtic started the campaign with a 4-2 victory over Ross County at home. Very interesting stuff to talk about in this show, and I'm delighted to welcome my two guests. First of all, you'll have read him in the Celtic View. I think he's a really terrific man when it comes to kind of tactical analysis. It's a pleasure to welcome on Stewart Ross.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure, and it's a pleasure to welcome on to the show Martin Crawford as well. Thank you very much for coming on, mate.
Cheers, mate. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's been very good. It's obviously it's always good to start the season with a win. Stuart, we'll get into the kind of match as a whole later on, but first of all, it's 3 points. It wasn't the best performance, I would say. I think Celtic will grow on it, but it was a good start. To get the result was always promising.
Yeah, I think there's probably anyone that's watched the pre-season games, it's been a bit like that, a bit bitty, for not the best phrase, but there was some good bits of play, some ropey defending, but yeah, on the whole, scoring 4 goals first day of season, get the 3 points, still kind of feels feeling their way into the season, but lots to kind of pick over, I suppose. But yeah, just in general, just from a fan's point of view, just want to get off the mark. No too many scares.
Absolutely. Team news. We'll start with the team. It was a bit of an interesting team. A few surprises. Obviously, Mike Nawrocki came in for his competitive debut. Rio Hatate was a surprise omission in the lineup. Martin, obviously Turnbull get the nod. What did you make of the team when you saw it?
That was the big surprise, wasn't it, when Turnbull played? But I think after the game on Tuesday, I know Hatate scored, but he did struggle a wee bit, and he is, I think, experimenting a decent bit with the team as a whole, but I think especially in the midfield. So it was a good opportunity for Turnbull, and it's good to know that Brendan does rate him, because I think we've all seen what he can do, and I think in the game he obviously showed what he could do, but at the time it definitely was a surprise, you know what I mean, because Hatate was arguably player of the year last year, you know what I mean, so you'd be expecting him to start the opening game.
Stuart, when Hatate was announced that he wasn't going to be playing, I don't think anybody can get on a limb and say he was terrific in pre-season, but obviously Mark made the point there, he was one of the players of last season. Do you think it was more a case of Turnbull's just been a bit better in the pre-season friendlies, or do you think it maybe was a case of what Martin's saying, he was maybe experimenting with the midfield and didn't he want to kind of, maybe wanted an extra kind of body for the front line as opposed to a Hatate type player?
Yeah, I think so. It's just that it's how that, like Mark says, it's the midfield where they're kind of, they've got these kind of, it's not looking like that in possession, but you've got a double pivot, whatever you want to call it, 2 deeper midfielders, and then a kind of classic 10, which is kind of what Turnbull is. Hatate's played the kind of 8, kind of halfway between a 6 and halfway between an 8 before, whereas maybe it's not his strength to play in that kind of deeper role that you've seen on Tuesday night. He's still looking to play those, exactly what you're looking for, but maybe playing, the blind pass and inside the middle of the park, deep inside their own half, it kind of caused the opening goal for Athletic. So I think, you could, obviously you can read into it in the fact he's just not starting, that he's potentially in a similar position to Carl Starfelt, that there maybe is transfer interest there and maybe stuff will happen in the next couple of days. But I think, he certainly wasn't great on Tuesday night. He wasn't great against Wolves. He was actually quite good in Japan. But it's a hard one. I think we touched on, there's probably a lot going on behind the scenes, and we're still kind of, it's unlikely this will be the kind of, that'll be the first 11 that starts the first game after the transfer window, for example. So the midfield was definitely interesting, and I think he probably deserved it, and to an extent he takes it. Obviously scores 2 goals, one was a penalty, but involved in the third goal, and it certainly might be the best thing for David Turnbull, Brendan Rodgers coming back.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. Getting into the game, obviously, Ross County, I think it's safe to say, Martin, I think Ross County kind of started quite well in the game. I think it took a wee while for Celtic to grow into it, but first 15, it was pretty tough for Celtic to really grow into the game.
I know it was quite an odd start to the game. Definitely not what anybody would have expected, but I think Ross County had a lot of corners, didn't they? Like it was quite weird. I think a lot of it was their own doing. Do you know what I mean? Not just tactically, but even when we had kind of time in the ball and all, we were a wee bit sloppy. A few players were a wee bit uncharacteristic in terms of when we had time in the ball, when we're looking to push forward, we were a wee bit too negative sometimes, and sometimes it was just kind of poor execution as well. So I think if you're a County fan, you're looking back at 15, 20 minutes and you're pulling your head out, because it's quite rare at Celtic Park. You're seeing teams come and sort of take the game to us in that way. But as I said, I did think it was some of your own doing, but the goal changes everything. Do you know what I mean? When you get the penalty and it felt like it was against the run of play at the time, it completely changes the game. It settles the crowd down a wee bit as well, and the players kind of needed that because it was a pretty uncharacteristic start.
Stuart, one of the things that was kind of catching my eye early on was Simon Murray was getting in behind Ralston a few times. I thought Carter Vickers was, obviously, you can tell he's still struggling to get up to 100%, but I was more worried about Ralston, for example. I thought there was a few times where he was really, really caught out. And would that concern you? Obviously, I know Ralston, I didn't think Ralston would play. I thought he would go with Awata in there, but I thought Ralston struggled early on.
Yeah, I think probably both fullback. Taylor probably had a bit better game than he had on Tuesday night, but still not, still kind of he looks like he's kind of halfway between, he's still coming in field a wee bit, still doing a wee bit inverting, but then still trying to play a traditional kind of fullback role and not suiting him. You'd think the traditional fullback kind of role would suit Ralston as well, would suit Ralston a bit better, but yeah, it could well just be kind of that rustiness. He's not played a lot of pre-season either, like Carter Vickers, like Rocky. Yeah, I don't know how much longer Johnson's out for, but you imagine he would come straight back in. But I suppose I think you probably want to touch on later in terms of transfers. Ideally, would you want a kind of higher quality backup in that position, maybe? But are you going to be able to solve is Rodgers going to have the opportunity to solve all the kind of things he wants to solve in this window? Probably not. But I think you kind of, that Ralston will get better, but only to a kind of point. And yeah, I kind of put it down more to that he's not played as much, but at the same time knowing that, we still ideally, would hope that Johnson's back, sooner rather than later, or if there is a potential there to do something that increases the competition there, because as much as Iwata looked okay there, it's not really he has played there before. I'm just still not sure, if he was caught out for the second goal, I think, on Tuesday night, and behind. So yeah, I was kind of surprised. I thought I would have started anyway. But yeah, Ralston, yeah, we wouldn't worry specifically on the game yesterday, just that you kind of know what you're going to get with Ralston, and he will get a bit better, and he always give you 100%. But whether or not that's maybe still an area that Celtic be looking at before the end of this transfer window, it might possibly be later on. But yeah, I suppose next couple of weeks, if he's going to play the next couple of weeks, he'd hope he'd start to get that bit of sharpness back.
Yep, absolutely. We'll move into looking at, obviously, the first goal. David Turnbull obviously converts the penalty. I think Greg Taylor does really well for it, and it does settle the crowd as well. But I think moving on to the second goal as well, I thought some of the movement, Kyogo's movement, I'm on record, I think his movement is second to none in this league. To just get in that position, I don't think Kyogo had his best game, but I think, just as you say, he gets only needs one opportunity, peels away beautifully and gets that second goal. And just like that, a kind of slow start, Martin, and Celtic have got two goals that really settled them down a bit.
Exactly, aye. No, it was a nice direct attack, wasn't it? I think, Abada, he's so good at that sort of run from that right-hand side of the pitch, and then when he has the ball, Kyogo's movement just makes his cross as easy as it possibly could have been. Do you know what I mean? I think, as you said, Kyogo's movement is such a weapon when you've got it, and it was dead early on in the game. It was before the half hour mark that we're 2-0 up. I think good for Kyogo as well. Your main goal scorer getting off the mark nice and early into the season. And as you said, from that point onwards, it changes the way the Ross County have to play. I think from that point on and going into the second half, we had a wee bit more space because we were sort of playing that way with Kyogo and Turnbull. They were doing a lot of moving all over the pitch. Kyogo wasn't sort of in that same position where he's occupying the centre halves like he was under Ange. I think we saw a lot Kyogo all over the park, almost like a false nine, and getting a lot of touches in different areas of the park. And when Ross County are a wee bit more aggressive and they were kind of playing man to man and trying to win the ball higher up when we were 2-0 up, that allowed for Kyogo to sort of exploit that a wee bit more, and David Turnbull as well. So it was a pretty important wee period of the game that for us to start attacking, and I think the second goal was nice. It was a good attack. Abada's delivery was good, and Kyogo solely at a first time finish as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Stewart, obviously Turnbull later on, he obviously gets his second, but it's a really good save for Laidlaw. Actually, it's a double save to just before that stops him. Obviously, he could potentially have the hat trick, but I think the third's a really good goal. It's brilliant link up between Kyogo and O'Reilly. Turnbull again peels away. I thought the third goal was probably the goal of the day. I really liked the movement between Kyogo. O'Reilly just in the left hand side, just knows where to put the ball. Turnbull does well at the back post, and it kind of clinches the game, doesn't it?
Yeah, with it really, feeling like the game had started almost. It was it was kind of strange. But yeah, that's what Rodgers obviously likes. He's mentioned liking about Turnbull. Getting that goal threat. Obviously, Hatate scored goals. Other midfielders have chipped in the goals plenty under Ange. So, but I think Turnbull, that is one of his strengths, and getting in the box, getting on the, obviously that one, it was, but it's probably quite a kind of underrated finish because you can see he deliberately puts it into the ground to make sure it gets up and into the net and doesn't give him much of a chance. But again, it's that we're talking about there, Martin, that movement from Kyogo almost playing, not really playing anywhere like he was, kind of like quite markedly different to what he was playing. That was certainly one of the things that was jumping out at me because I had a quick look at the numbers already after one game because that's the way I'm inclined. But just they had 33 passes yesterday, Kyogo, which is compared to, I know it's one game, so we shouldn't really read too much into it, but he's averaged just under 13 passes in the league since he's come to Celtic. So that's not just that he's, we've kind of seen this. You've seen him once or twice last season, that dropping deep to drag the
I think he will play a different role under Rodgers. I think Rodgers
it looks clear.
More out. He's obviously with Edward, Edward would drop back. Do you think he could play that
totally.
In a different role?
I think so. I think because, like I say, you can see that in the, I was going to say the one last season. I remember doing a piece for the Celtic Way. I think it was Kilmarnock, the third or fourth game of the season away. Scored, I think it was 5-0. There was one that he put round the corner to Jota. Again, it was dropping deep, and that kind of round the corner ball, and that was obviously what kind of helped set up that goal, and then in the second half as well. But no, just really interesting that it's not just that he has done that a bit, doing it a lot more, but also just kind of combining and stuff as well, and that kind of clear that, I didn't go back and look at every game, but I doubt he probably had more than 33 passes in the last 2 seasons if he's averaging less than 13. So really interesting. Obviously, the kind of question everyone else that asked was, is that going to take away from, him getting on the end of things? But he still managed to do that as well. So yeah, that's definitely probably the one biggest thing that stuck out to me, and the thing that would be interesting to keep an eye on, certainly in the next couple of weeks. And but it's obvious to the eye, and it was quite interesting just that, it's one game, but some kind of eye-catching kind of numbers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Martin, I thought Celtic came out in the second half a lot better. I thought it was obviously a far better start than it was in the first half, and it was just a lot more tidier. But again, we'll get into the goalkeeper. I want to get Stuart's thoughts on this as well. Ross County had a lot of corners. Jan Dander puts an outswinger in. Joe Hart doesn't find it at all. Ross County take advantage of it and get the goal. John White scores a looking header. It's a really, really poor goal to concede. But again, there's been a lot of talk over the summer about the potential of a new number one. I don't think this will I think if the people that are wanting that have certainly got another thing to go in the for category in that.
I know. I think it's dead hard in it with Joe Hart because in terms of likability and what kind of character you're wanting, and our Celtic player, he's got everything. But I think he was never. I think Brendan Rodgers said it earlier in the summary. He's never going to be Ederson. He's never going to be a goalkeeper whose strength is on the ball. But if he's offering you some upside in terms of shot stopping, and of course he's the kind of intangible stuff in the dressing room, then he's a bit of an asset. But I think what we've seen as time's progressed in the later stages of last season, and definitely so far this season, is that his upside is getting less and less, and that's just going to happen with age. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think watching the pre-season games, especially the Wolves game, there was just so many shaky moments, and you know that's never been his game. He's definitely had to make a lot of changes in terms of how he plays, the decisions that he makes on the ball, and that's never been a smooth sort of transition for him. But it's no surprise that we're looking in the market for a goalkeeper this summer, and it's something that I wrote about as well. I wrote something in the Celtic Exchange just kind of looking at different types of goalkeeper as well, and I'm sure the people in the recruitment department have got much more knowledge than me about that. But if you're looking for a new goalkeeper, you're looking for somebody who has that strength on the ball. Do you know what I mean? Because that's where Rodgers is very similar to Ange. Wants the goalkeeper to be important in build-up, and certainly Joe Hart's been an amazing servant for us. Do you know what I mean? And I would like to think that he would stay. You know, he wouldn't leave. I'd like him to stay in because he is a pretty beneficial presence for us. But I think the goal was an example of the fact that his overall goalkeeping game is beginning to decline a wee bit, and we're not getting the same upside that we got when he first joined. So, listen, I love the way that the guy just sort of embraced Celtic when he came. He was such an important signing for Ange, but you know, as times went on, naturally, you're just going to move on from some players, and we've definitely sort of reached that point with Joe Hart.
Sure, I think the difficulty with Joe Hart is, and obviously we saw it a couple of years ago, there was a reason Joe Hart came in, is because Celtic needed stability in the goalkeeper position. Good goalkeepers cost money, and Celtic with their fingers burnt in the past, obviously very recently. It's going to cost a lot of money to get a good goalkeeper in, and with 3 weeks to go, are you going to overpay? It's going to be a difficult one if Celtic are in the market for a new goalie.
I think they've got to be. It's just what kind of level that they're looking at, because I think Bain was on the bench yesterday rather than Seagrass, so kind of shows you that he's. Well, obviously Rodgers signed Bain, so maybe that was kind of. But you know, there's no competition essentially for Joe Hart, which is part of the problem. If you'd hope at the very least you'd be able to bring someone that could, you know, ideally you're looking at, you know, somebody 27, 28 who's kind of reaching that kind of peak curve of their career. But if it is a bit younger, at least it's someone who can challenge right away, and you maybe, you know, accept that, you know, he maybe might make the odd mistake as well, but he's kind of on that upward trajectory, you know. Unfortunately, as much as, you know, like Martin says, everyone was like Joe Hart and how he went about coming up to Scotland and kind of embracing that side of it and talking up the game and talking up the club. He's not going to get better. He's as harsh as it is, he's getting worse, and you can see it. And in terms of, you know, you're talking, Martin saying about the upside and shot stopping, but and he's right in terms of the overall, because other parts of his game, you know, the decision making for the one with Murray in the first half of the chance, potentially lucky to get away, not conceding a penalty, and then the goal was just, you know, losing the flight of the ball and then kind of panic station. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, because out with the Croatian goalkeeper, just completely went out of my head. Lifka, that's the which is quite a kind of, would be quite a statement signing. Not really seen any other links to goalkeepers. So is that saying, you know, the club kind of putting out, oh, we are looking at a goalkeeper, but how serious are you about that? Because we're now in, you know, last couple of weeks, maybe there is somebody out there, a Premier League goalkeeper who's maybe, you know, potentially would be a second choice this season, who'll get some minutes, but is maybe try to convince to come up and be a number one for Celtic. Yeah, you'd really hope that would be somewhere that we'd be looking at in the next week or so. It's certainly for, you know, I think it does kind of limit your kind of ambitions European wise as well. It might well be enough to get again, no, it's not a position you want to be saying that, we can carry a player for a season and we'll get by. It's not really the way you want to be looking at it. But in terms of the league, maybe not fine enough to be number one domestically but in terms of Europe, you'd have to really kind of calibrate what what you could do European wise this season, unless you do bring in someone who, at the very least, is going to bring a wee bit of stability, because that's actually what we're looking for. Because just those couple of things touched on there from yesterday, that's kind of what wasn't as maybe not quite as obviously bad as when he came in, but you're now looking at somebody, you're just looking for somebody a bit competent. That's as harsh as that sounds.
Yeah, I think it's obviously going to be something that needs addressed. I think, as a perfect example, Hart, he's done really well in his 2 seasons, but I don't think anybody thought it was going to be like a 4 or 5 year thing. I think it's always been a case of, and now the money's there. I think I will be expecting to see him maybe. I don't know how much like Livkovic, for example. I think there's a few clubs looking at him. I've heard the fee of like 10 million. I don't think Celtic will pay that for a goalkeeper, but I think they're going to have to pay at least 6 or 7 to get a really good proper number one in. And I don't, as we saw in the past, you don't always get it right. So that's going to be certainly an interesting one. But obviously a couple of changes were made. Hatate came on for Turnbull. Carol Starfelt looks very much like this could be his last game. He came on, but just before O'Reilly scored his goal. I thought again, Martin, really terrific bit of play. Kyogo's pass, O'Reilly, I thought he was terrific all afternoon, just the way he managed to get forward on several occasions. I think he's going to be a big player under Rodgers. And I thought it was a brilliant way to end the game. I thought really good pass from Kyogo, and O'Reilly I think he deserved a goal, just how good he was all game.
Yeah, another really nice goal. As you say, Kyogo heavily involved again despite not being the goal scorer. And it's actually a fairly simple goal, because it's really just Kyogo's flash of brilliance, and then 1 touch later the ball's in the back of the net. And I think, as you said about O'Reilly, he's a player, midfielder, with so much to his game. I've always kind of felt like the one place where you're wanting him a wee bit more is in the final third, goals wise. He's a player who gets a lot of shots in games, but that isn't really reflected in his goal numbers. So it was a really, really good finish from him. Do you know what I mean? On his right foot as well. I think for any advanced sort of Celtic midfielder like him, people who like being in the final third, it's so important that you get goals. You know what I mean? You think of Tom Rogic at his best was getting 10 goals a season, Stuart Armstrong, players like that. And Matt O'Reilly's capable of that, but we haven't really seen it, and it's been very encouraging seeing him so far. He is playing in a sort of different role again. I think Stewart said earlier, it's a wee more of a double pivot with McGregor. And it changes McGregor's role as well, because McGregor's used to being the sort of heartbeat of the team. He's used to having the ball with 2 advanced midfielders ahead of him, and it was all very structured under Ange, whereas it seems a lot more fluid under Rodgers. Do you know what I mean? And O'Reilly is one of those players that's sharing that responsibility with McGregor to progress the ball forward. Kyogo as well and Turnbull sort of coming, and sometimes they're up near the defence, but other times they're sort of coming short to receive the ball a lot more. And O'Reilly's a player who he's so intelligent, he's able to do that. Do you know what I mean? It isn't just fitting and sort of finishing and in the final third that's his game. He can defend as well. We've seen him play the 6 before. He's a really complete player, and it's easy to forget how young he is as well. Do you know what I mean? Still in his very early 20s, and he came from League One, instantly was thrown into some high profile games, played Champions League for the first time last season. He's a really exciting player, and definitely the type of profile that Rodgers will be looking at. I think he actually got linked with Leicester when Rodgers was there, which is no surprise, because in terms of a young midfield player, he's got everything, and it was a good goal. As I said, on his right foot, it was a pretty impressive finish, and hopefully that's a focus of his and Rodgers, is if they're looking at his game, something that will take him to the next level is getting some more goals. So that's good for him to be off the mark.
Stuart, I think Matt O'Reilly obviously is as a player who's kind of enjoying playing under Brendan Rodgers. He's been very vocal in the past kind of couple of weeks just about the kind of difference between the 2 managers. I don't necessarily think it's a dig at Postecoglou, some of his comments, but I certainly think he's the sort of player who will thrive on that, being able to be that kind of all-round midfielder that Rodgers kind of likes. Like there's so many times when Rodgers kind of likes that player who can do all the work in midfield. I thought yesterday getting into a lot of tight areas, you saw a difference in the way he plays. I just think he seems to just be a bit happier. I think everybody kind of seems to think now Rodgers is a far better man manager than Postecoglou was. I think for somebody like O'Reilly, He's very young. Just that, I think, is going to just kick him on.
Yeah, I think really starting to see how completely different management styles went from, because Matt O'Reilly was hugely effective for Celtic under Postecoglou, but in that very structured, rigid system. Now you can see that it's kind of obvious if a young player's kind of been, in that system, then suddenly a manager's come in and is a bit more kind of arm around you and saying, go and play your game, go and not completely free roam kind of thing, but go and be a bit more kind of, combine a bit more freely. So yeah, I think it's not just O'Reilly. It's like saying about Kyogo that maybe again hugely effective finisher. Stick him in that system as your finisher, perfect. But we've not seen it. But now kind of seen wee glimpses of him as well. That there's maybe other parts of his game to come as well. And I think O'Reilly's one of them too. He's seen the pass on Tuesday night for Bernabei's goal. Just that kind of free kind of one kind of again, not that what was before wasn't effective, but just a kind of different. And yeah, it's quite interesting. O'Reilly was probably one that you would be thinking would be, the fact he's played in England. He's been, like Martin said, he was linked to Leicester before. I think there was chat start of the summer that he would have certainly people watching him. I'm not surprised there wouldn't be. So interesting that he does seem like he's kind of even kind of taking more a kind of leadership role in that squad, which is kind of interesting as well. And yeah, I think he'll thrive like Turnbull from that. Kyogo's dropping deeper, it's generating that space in behind that he can get in the box and get more kind of opportunities to, like Martin says, he got plenty of shots away last season, but probably further out. And I think with this system as well, was having that freedom a bit more. It'll give him that opportunity to get in around the box a bit more. And you see a great finish off his right foot. And yeah, really good to see him kind of coming to the fore as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we saw the introduction, three subs come on. Obviously Forrest come on, he nearly had a chance to get in the act as well. I really liked I know we didn't see much at home, but I thought Yang made quite a good impact when he came on. Martin, I could see it was really good, I thought, in the way he kind of played the part in the counter attack and nearly ended up with Forrest scoring. I think the new signings, I know it was we've seen very little of them, but you can see what they're all about early on.
I know Yang's a player that I'm really excited about, and I feel like the more that we see of him, the more that we maybe get an idea of just how good a signing he could be. He's a player who, obviously, as is the case with all these guys, they're not coming here the finished article, but that's never really been the way that we are going to make our best signings. And this recruitment team that are making the signings like Yang, Home, Kwon, they're never all going to be 10 out of 10s, but you look at signings like Hatate and Kyogo, when we're identifying these players, naturally the support are not really going to know anything about them. But typically, the more you see them, the more you're impressed with them. And as you said, Yang has looked really impressive, but Home as well. I would have liked to see a wee bit more of him, in pre-season. Like, I don't think he got too many minutes. I could be wrong about that, but he seems to me like the type of player that the more touches of the ball he gets, the happier he is. And he can be pretty good for us in build-up. Seems nice and press resistant, good technically. Looks like he can carry the ball. So he's only 20 years old. Do you know what I mean? You think about the room he's got to improve as well. Just a few £1 million from Norway, and it was obviously nice to see Starfelt as well coming on, getting a wee, what looks like a wee farewell appearance. So I know the subs were always going to be significant. Hatate as well is always going to come on and make an impact. He came on fairly early, but you want to just be seeing more and more of the new signings, and I'm sure that'll happen more and more as we go through the season. And I still have a really good feeling about Yang, to be honest. I have been impressed by him. I look at the type of player he is, the profile he is. I think he looks really technically good. I think he has that sort of intensity on and off the ball that we've come to love from the likes of Dyson and Kyogo. So yeah, at a really young age as well, I'm dead excited about Yang, and I agree. I think he's been pretty impressive from the wee flashes that we've seen him.
Yeah, absolutely. One signing I was impressed with, Stewart, was Mike Nabrowski. Obviously, competitive debut. I thought he was really comfortable in the ball. I thought we've seen that against Bilbao as well. wasn't fair again in a tackle as well. I thought a lot of times the Ross County were getting forward. I don't think they were afraid to all game, by the way, as we saw with the second goal. I think Starfelt was quite unlucky, but I quite like Nabrowski already.
Yeah, especially again, like the other guys kind of mentioned earlier on, not played a lot of, had a knock, and he's played a bit of pre-season, but not much as far as I was aware. And coming in, looks like he's just going to slot straight in, which is ideal, considering what the kind of what's kind of developed with Starfelt. You would have kind of thought that those would be a kind of three, so probably be looking to bring somebody else. I think he kind of actually said that when we was talking about Starfelt yesterday, that they'd be looking to bring somebody in, but I think already you could probably be comfortable with him being your first choice alongside Carter Vickers. And like you say, solid, looks like he likes defending, which is a good thing in a defender. But also the other side of the game as well looked a wee bit more kind of comfortable. That'll kind of come. I've done the kind of scout report on him for the Celtic way, and he played a lot in a back three, and that was my kind of thinking is on the right side as well. So you're thinking that shows good kind of a good indicator of his quality, that he's slotted in on the left side of back four. It doesn't look too kind of too uncomfortable, and new environment, new teammates, and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I think there'll be a lot more to come from him, because I think he could offer. Seen he was obviously a bit of involvement in the goal in the first half. I think he could be signs there that he could be a bit more. Not to Starfelt, I think a lot of the time was that it was his kind of aesthetics that people. It wasn't actually as bad on the ball as what he kind of looked. He just looked a bit kind of awkward at times. But yeah, there's signs there that he could well be, and obviously you look at it from a recruitment point of view. He's 22. You're moving on a 28-year-old. You could potentially bring in another 20, 21-year-old to play that third kind of choice. It's good kind of squad kind of management as well. And yeah, but I think there will be a bit more to come from as well. Just quietly on the other guys as well. I thought Yang, like Mance, is really kind of again, I kind of looked at him for Celtic way, and I probably think that's kind of surprised me was how kind of technically kind of sound he looks. He didn't kind of think it's hard watching these players in K League and J League, and you wonder what the kind of standard up against, how that's going to look in the Scottish League. But I think it's perfect for him in terms of he's probably going to be one of those first kind of wingers off the bench, and he's got that kind of explosiveness. He's got he can stretch the game. He can come inside and link as well. So yeah, I think he'll have a big part to play. And yeah, home just really quickly. I've already started the hype on that with the piece I done the other day. I really like him. I think he could well be kind of, again, you're talking about that midfield kind of structure that's going on. He seems like he could. If Rodgers is keen to move McGregor a wee bit further on, like he looks like he has been, I think home can offer you really, like Mark says, that press resistance that's so comfortable on the ball, happy to take it in tight, but also able to roll a man and able to find that pass. Just yeah, quite excited about him. Probably overly excited, but yeah, really think those guys you'll see probably maybe a bit more than we thought. And yeah, I think Navrocki seems like a really kind of solid and looking like an even more kind of important buy given what's happened to Starfelt.
Yeah, we'll kind of stick with Carl Starfelt, Martin. It's very likely he's going to Celta Vigo. Fabrizio Romano reports that Celta Vigo are in advanced talks. The fee is reported to be about €5 million, which maybe isn't that impressive when you consider that I think Celtic paid something like 3.5 for him back maybe 2 years ago. So it's not a great profit, but for the 2 years he's been here, there's obviously personal reasons that he's going to go. I think there's one in Portugal that's certainly a big reason for that. But he's certainly been a good servant for Celtic, and I don't think it's one that I don't think Rodgers is particularly happy. But from a personal point of view, I think it's hard to argue if he wants to move on.
I know. I think maybe a wee bit similar to when we lost Jackie Marcus at the same age. You know what I mean? 8-year-old, and any profit you can get in a player at that age is a pretty good profit for a club like us. That's always going to be something that we're thinking about when we're moving players on. But in terms of Starfelt, if you're looking at the 2 years that he spent here, I mean, I was talking about Joe Hart earlier. Starfelt's another one of those really, really important signings in Ange's first summer. I think Ange at the time looked at what he had. He had the defence, which was shambolic, to be honest. I think we just lost 6 against West Ham in that friendly, and he knew he needed someone who was pretty reliable in defensive situations. Do you know what I mean? I think Starfelt, looking at his strengths, it was always 9 times out of 10 he can deal with a ball. Probably more than 9 times. When he's dealing with crosses into the box, that's a big strength of his as well, and he's a good anticipator as well. I always felt like, when you're playing games domestically, especially with that kind of system, the centre backs are so high up that when they can kind of make those interceptions that stop opposition counter attacks, I thought Starfelt was always really, really good at that. Good acceleration as well, helps sort of covering behind, and it was really injured as well, which is pretty important for a centre half, because him and Carter Vickers ended up building a formidable partnership together. And when you're sort of playing together for very regularly as a couple of centre backs, it showed how good our defensive numbers were, and we were always really good at dealing with set pieces and things like that under Ange. And I'm sure Brendan Rodgers would have liked to continue that. I'm sure he would have liked to have come in and had Starfelt for the first season, but as you said, when you're making these kind of sales, it's always, you have to look at it sort of objectively from a business perspective. And if you're making profit on a 28-year-old who's only got 2 years left in his contract, then that's a decision that I suppose makes sense. And listen, for Starfelt, I think he can be upgraded on, to be honest. I think, I'm not alone in the support. I'm sure we all had criticisms of him at some point. There was definitely times where he left some bit to be desired in terms of his composure, his decision-making, and I felt like there was some games where he really did benefit from an outstanding partner in Carter Vickers next to him. And that sort of partnership was a big part of why he was so important and why he was basically never out of the team. But we've seen more than enough duds at Celtic, especially centre-half, to not take someone like Starfelt for granted. So he goes with my best wishes.
Yeah, sure. I think Starfelt's going to be one of those players that, while he was there, obviously, he did his bit. He was very good. Martin's right in terms of some of his decision making at times I thought was off, but clearances, interceptions, I thought winning long balls, winning stuff in the air, I thought he was really, really good. I think he's going to be one of those players that when he does leave, I think he's going to be very, very difficult to replace.
Yeah, because probably not going to go for the same. He would have been 26 at the time. Doubt Celtic will go for, unless Rodgers has somebody in mind from different they prioritise a bit more experience there. But like I say, at the time that was what was absolutely required. And yeah, like I said myself, yeah, probably a bit underrated in general by the support maybe. But yeah, like I said, there was the odd kind of occasion. But yeah, in terms for him, at 28 to go to a top 5 league in La Liga, Celta Vigo, probably, kind of mid-table, probably be really well suited for that. He'll probably be, at least, half the time beyond kind of the back foot, having to defend a lot more, and that certainly was his strengths in terms of just defending the box. So yeah, I think it's one that works well, and like I said earlier, Ange touched on it. In terms of the recruitment last season being more aggressive. It's a guy that's 28 now, 2 years left on his deal. You can make your money back plus a wee bit extra, which ideally you'd be wanting a wee bit more. But in reality, he's a 28-year-old centre back. Yeah, he's an international, but I don't think you'd probably get too much more than what he is going to go for. So if you can get that wee bit extra than you paid, then you can reinvest that straight away in somebody else, then I think it is good business. And yeah, again, it'll be interesting to see the kind of profile that they bring in. There definitely seems to be a bit of chat that Kobayashi might go on loan. Scales, don't imagine would be sticking around. Welsh, there's been plenty of chat about him, so he could very quickly be going, actually 1 or 2 injuries away from being quite short here. So just in terms of numbers, that's before you can kind of talk about quality wise, because we've seen it in the kind of Wolves game as kind of okay as Welsh and Scales were compared to what you can see with Carter Vickers and Rocky. It's quite a kind of a drop off. So yeah, kind of interesting to see what they do with that kind of. If it's a kind of third spot kind of centre back, they're going to go and look and bring him.
Have you seen who the new Celta Vigo manager is?
Rafa Benitez.
Actually,
Rafa
Rafa Benitez. I did that. Yes.
I think that could be a perfect kind of way to
Definitely,
go. I think that could suit him fine. Another kind of player that's caught a bit of interest. I don't know if there's much in this. Is Said Aksabanovic. Now, I think we saw last season. There's chat of him potentially his agent wants him to move on. I don't know if that's true or not, but he's maybe a player who certainly is more than capable off the bench. But Martin, is he going to be that kind of main man that could maybe step up? I think Abada is certainly one that can step up this season with the replace to kind of replace Jota. I still think they'll go in for a winger, but Haksabanovic, to me, I think I wouldn't be overly surprised if he was to maybe move on in the window.
I mean, you were saying about his agent there. I mean, if you look at the amount of clubs he's had already in his career, the age he's at. I mean, his agent's no bad at his job, to be fair. But as a player, I think he's quite hard to talk about because there's been times where the support have been dead positive on Haksabanovic because from, he was feeding off scraps at times last season in terms of the minutes that he got. And I think of the times that it was against Ross County, wasn't it? He came off the bench to score. Done it against Hearts as well. And then I think after that, he started at Tynecastle in the Scottish Cup game and didn't quite live up to expectations. And I felt like Ange used him on the right wing sometimes as well, where to me, he was always a player who was at his best when he was cutting in from that sort of left area onto his right. And when he wasn't able to do that, I don't think he was kind of being used in an optimal sort of position. But as I said, I mean, it'd be a shame if we lost him because he's only been here for a year. He is still a young player. Rodgers, players at that age, you'd expect them to be able to work with Rodgers and for Rodgers to be able to sort of help them grow into sort of first team contributors, especially in the absence of Jota. Do you know what I mean? See, in an ideal world, when you're signing Haksabanovic, you're probably looking at it and saying, well, let's imagine we lose Jota for a good fee next summer. If Haksabanovic can maybe step into that role, then we're not having to worry so much about getting into the transfer market and replacing him, but it doesn't look like it's going to work out that way. I think as well, when he first signed, he maybe said about his best position being number 10.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Ange used him in a sort of 8 sometimes. I remember it was either the Shakhtar or the Leipzig game. I think the Leipzig game in Champions League last season at Celtic Park, he started in midfield. So there was always a bit of confusion there over what his best position was, and that was something that I would have hoped as well that Rodgers would be able to deal with. But listen, you never know what's going on here. You know what I mean? I wouldn't rule out some sort of attitude sort of issue here because there's been a few rumours there and all. And he's certainly a guy who, from what we did see, it doesn't make sense that he hasn't played as much. And he's definitely a player who looked like he had the talent. So I'd be disappointed if he lost him after just a year because he's a player who came in at a really good price, decent pedigree for a player his age, and I would have expected him to be able to be a long-term competitor for Jota, or now in the situation where we've lost Jota, for him to be able to come in and play. So if that doesn't happen, then again, I wish him all the best. But I'd be a wee bit sort of disappointed with that, to be honest.
Yeah, what do you think of it? Because I think Jota is going to have to be replaced, and I think the feeling that if Haksabanovic is maybe looking for a new club, is it suggesting that there's maybe somebody coming in?
You'd hope so because it doesn't look like. I think even Yang's played solely on the right. He said himself he was a right winger. When I looked at him, he played a wee bit on the left. Marco Tilio probably not going to see for a wee bit yet. He was also kind of more off the right, kind of cutting in. Not really been kind of, obviously what's with Maeda yesterday doesn't even get in the squad. That's kind of telling in itself. But I think even Abada's kind of played off that left, Forrest on left as well. So yeah, just kind of telling that not in the squad, not kind of didn't even. I think on Tuesday night he didn't come on at all. Was that right? He certainly wasn't on at half time or that. As far as I can remember, because there was lots of changes. But again, that's kind of telling that he's not kind of involved in that kind of thing either. I really like Haksabanovic as well. I think just don't think he had that pace to play effectively out wide, especially in kind of Ange's system where probably try to isolate wingers but probably quite wide, so still quite a lot apart they can come in and affect it. But you've seen when he come on, Martin touched on those goals, and he can really technically really good in tight areas and can get the ball at his feet and got a really good kind of good ball striker. it was probably more the middle that you were looking for him. I think I remember doing a bit when he started, when he his debut at McDermott Park. I think he played in kind of that one of the eights, and he looked or kind of more of a 10, and he looked really good in there as well. And I thought kind of that's exactly what you're kind of looking for at that time. But yeah, it'll be disappointing if, but like you said, like you both kind of said, there might be other circumstances in terms of attitude, or I think Rodgers was pretty vocal about sitting everyone down and speaking to them and finding out what's making them tick, where they see themselves going, and if that conversation Rodgers doesn't seem what he wants to see, then yeah, I think probably going to touch on kind of transfers just before shortly. I think this week, the next, well, until the window shuts, basically, I think it could be quite busy, a bit busier than we even thinking. If there is 2 or 3 kind of first team players going out as well, which would be the class Haksabanovic as on top of Starfelt, Hatate question marks, or anyone else, plus the 2 or 3 we're probably looking at anyway. Yeah, it could be quite a bit busy, but yeah, disappointing because you do look at him and he's got the kind of bit of a superstar look about him, but it's not quite worked out, which is unfortunate.
We'll move into kind of transfers. I think it is going to be a busy week. Hatate, I'm not overly sure what's going on there. I wouldn't be overly surprised if we saw some sort of bid, but Martin, it's a real difficult one because I think with Jota being sold for the fee he has, I'd be very surprised if Celtic made another big sale before the end of the window.
Absolutely, I think coming into this window, you didn't want to accept it, but you did kind of know that you were always going to lose a big player. Do you know what I mean? Because Andrew made all these signings in a similar sort of period of time, quite a short space of time. Do you know what I mean? It was such a big rebuild. So that's always going to mean that they're all going to leave, or at least want to leave at a similar amount of time. And you're never going to rebuild the squad again and let all these guys go at once. But I was kind of, if there was one kind of positive to squeeze out of losing Jota, it was that we lost him pretty early in the window. Pre-season hadn't really started, so it did kind of give you that finality, and you felt like guys like Hatate, Carter Vickers, Kyogo obviously signed a new contract, who might have had interest as well, that you would be able to at least start this season with them. So I'd be pretty disappointed if we lost Hatate, but at the same time, do you know what I mean? Every player's got a price. Do you know what I mean? Hatate hasn't signed a new contract like Kyogo, McGregor, Dyson have. So you do kind of feel that way. I remember Rodgers will have a bit of PTSD with this because he thought they'd kept Mr. Dembele in that 2018 summer, and then he ended up losing him in deadline day with a big fallout, and we weren't able to replace him. And then God forbid that happens with Hatate, because the guy is such a unique player. I think Stewart touched on maybe David Turnbull starting. It was because of the shape of the midfield, and he's more of a 10. But I think a player had Hatate's qualities. Do you know what I mean? He can play. We've seen it. He can play several positions. And I do think that actually when Andrew went to Spurs, I felt like he'd be a kind of player that would translate pretty well into Andrew's system at that level. And even if it isn't him, I know he's been linked with Brighton. They know a good player when they see one, especially a good Japanese player. So I definitely wouldn't rule out losing him, as much as I really don't want to. But overall, looking at the rest of the summer, the focus, I know we're losing Starfelt, but the focus should be on incomings, because we've already touched on the goalkeeping position. It's been a priority all summer, as far as most of the support are concerned, and I'm sure there would be a few questions asked if we weren't able to get a goalkeeper in, one that was ready to come in and contribute. In terms of other positions, maybe looking at fullbacks. I think when I'm thinking about the rumours that we've had, it's felt a wee bit like Rodgers might want a fullback, a left or right back, because looking at Greg Taylor, how important he was under Ange playing in that system. If Rodgers is wanting a more traditional overlapping fullback, that's not Greg Taylor's strengths. It's not that he can't do it, but I think Greg Taylor's a fullback that wants a lot of touches in the ball and play a pretty different role, and he's very good at that. But Rodgers might want someone with a different threat there. So if that's another position, then I'd maybe guess fullback, because it feels like we're pretty overloaded in midfield. You might replace Haksabanovic if you lose him, if you want a wee bit more in the left, as Stewart was talking about. But goalkeeping seems the main priority, and you're hoping to avoid any more high profile outgoings, because Jota was a big profit sale. Do you know what I mean? It was a big player that we lost, and it won't be easy to replace, but you're trying to squeeze the positives out of it. Do you know what I mean? It was early on in the window, we got money for him. And hopefully that's the sort of big outgoing over and done with.
Could still be available for loan if the reports are to be believed.
Aye.
But yeah, I mean, Stuart, I'll be very surprised if Hatate was to go. But I think that when you're just looking kind of down the squad, like you still forget like Ayeti's there, Sorrow's there. You're hoping before the end of the window just to get a few quid in some way for they two, like especially McCarthy there as well. I'd be surprised if he's still there. There's a few players in that squad that could still generate a decent fee just to hopefully maybe help just if you're going to bring in 2 or 3 more.
Yeah, hopefully their agents are busy as well. Yeah, whether you get enough money that will make a material difference and getting the £8-9 million goalkeeper you want, I don't know, but yeah, I think there's work to be done in other areas, and I think he's been quite, as much as it's been quiet the last week or two, he's been quite consistent in that there is other areas that he's goalkeeper, the one we've talked about most being the most obvious one, left wing, especially if Facts Management goes, and I think anyway probably looking at left wing for Jota, and yeah, fullback's interesting. Bernabei is another one who didn't get in the squad yesterday. After scoring twice in pre-season and just generally looking like not learning too much about him, to be honest, as much as he scored a couple of goals. What you're getting there is a lot of attacking kind of intent, but you have to deal with the kind of defensive side, and is that maybe just too much of a work-up job? Is there somebody else that's more, as much some of the physical attributes are some of the good things about Bernabei as well in terms of speed and that, but is there somebody more kind of, I think Rogers had mentioned, powerful as well in terms of that was a kind of attribute he was looking for and kind of signings, and done a wee bit of that and Kwon and this one of Rocky in terms of centre back, but that might be kind of in terms of profile rather than just position, but like I say, I think it will be kind of quite busy, and yeah, it'll be yeah. I think if if you're going to sell, if Hatate is going to go again, that's you'd be talking minimum 20 million, to bring in 40 million plus in sales in one window. I think it has traditionally been one that tops didn't really sell anyone for a huge fee last summer though. So, and if there is question marks about his fit or he's like staff felt he feels it time's right for him to move on and change a manager, then it might just be circumstances that is probably wasn't kind of the plan at the start of the summer. But hopefully the club's prepared. I've seen bits and pieces last night about Guy Doyle at Man City, links with him. He's an out and out centre mid, so kind of maybe whether there's truth in that or not, but I think there were always kind of tenuous links with him before, so there might be something in that, and that maybe points there as well. Yeah, I think really quite interesting what the squad's looking like, not just when the window shuts, but I think even by next Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of next Sunday, we're going to have a wee look at the Aberdeen game. Obviously, it's going to be a difficult away game. Aberdeen obviously didn't have the best start on Saturday against Livy. They'll be coming out looking to get a win on the board. Martin, come to you first. We'll just go around the panel before we wrap up. Predictions for the Aberdeen game?
Predictions, you don't play a narrow victory. I'll probably go for a 2-1. It definitely feels like we're still in that phase. Well. Aye, I think Pittodrie away is not an ideal fixture for a second game, and Brendan knows that. He's had a few sort of close encounters at Pittodrie for his first spell. He knows what it's like, and if you are making any new signings this week, then it's a potential baptism of fire for them as well. But any win will do for me personally. Yeah,
Stewart, it's going to be a difficult one. What's your predictions for that?
Yeah, instinctively probably a narrow win, but probably more comfortable up there in recent years than we probably kind of think. And yeah, I don't know, I didn't see much seen the highlights from Livingston yesterday. Don't imagine that was much of a Feaster football.
To watch, it really wasn't.
Deary me. So yeah, that's it's difficult to read into that because it's a bit of an outlier going there and first game of the season as well. And obviously the fact Aberdeen haven't played competitively either, being in Europe. It's tough to kind of it's tough in general at this time of season to kind of what kind of level of opposition they might be. You know, I think they've made quite a lot of signings as well. So there maybe it's a good deed. Look at the positive side and say, well, maybe this is actually quite a good time to go up there. That they're not quite up to speed either, and as much as Celtic are going through probably a bigger kind of transition than maybe anticipated, there's still plenty of quality there. Plenty of guys there that have been up there in the last couple of years and know how to win. So yeah, I think given other results yesterday, it's maybe people maybe feel a wee bit more relaxed about it. But yeah, it'll still be a tough game, and I think probably narrow win would be 2-1. I think there'll be goals. I think that's clear from yesterday as well in terms of how the defence, as much as be a week further on. I think if the goalkeeping situation is still much the same, if you're only a week further on with they'll not have any other game time, there's no other kind of friendlies or anything, then I think Aberdeen would be hoping they'd be able to, looking at Ross County going to Celtic Park and scoring 2 goals, they'd be feeling pretty confident they could, cause some damage. So might need to score 2 or 3. So yeah, I'll go 3-2. I'll go goals.
Brilliant. But we'll get a tight victory for Celtic. Anyway, it's a game we'll look at in the next episode of the Celtic Report podcast. And all that's left me to do now is thank our 2 guests. First of all, it's a pleasure, Martin Crawford. Thank you very much.
No, pleasure, Scott. Cheers for having me on, mate.
It's a pleasure. And to Stewart Ross, thank you very much for coming on, mate. It's been a pleasure.
No, brilliant. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks very much to everyone that's tuned in. Please like and subscribe to our podcast YouTube channels. And as always, follow us on social media. Thanks very much, guys. We'll see you soon.